Ava, will you marry me? Yes. Her eyes welled up as she held out her delicate, pale hand, letting me slide the ring onto her slender finger. In the glow of the setting sun, the wind rustled through the treetops, composing the soundtrack to our quiet, extraordinary love. I wrapped my calloused hands around the woman I loved. Whose are you now? I'm yours, Caleb. I'm your Ava. I was the town orphan. My parents died in an accident when I was 9, leaving behind a small settlement check and 3 cold, empty rooms that never felt warm again. No one cared about me. No one wanted to be my friend. I shut myself in that house for 3 solid months. I left everything exactly as it was the day they left, every object in its place. Every evening, I'd sit on the front step and stare down the road, hoping, praying to see their figures walking back toward me. Caleb, get back inside, it's cold out. How did you get out here again? Didn't I tell you to wait inside? Look what I bought you. Your favorite chocolate chip cookies. Dad would laugh and swing me into his arms, scratching my cheek with his stubble. Mom would take my hand, brush the dust off my jeans, and lead me inside. She'd lay out fresh clothes for me, then head to the kitchen to whip up a hot dinner. We'd eat together, the house filled with laughter until bedtime. But every morning, I'd wake up to a tear-soaked pillow in a house that held only me. Mrs. Miller, my teacher from the elementary school, came to find me. She asked if I want to come back to school. She was a gentle woman in her 30s. That day, she made me a bowl of mac and cheese and told me that if I didn't get an education, I'd have no future. It was the first time anyone had shown me any kindness since my parents were gone. I agreed to go back, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. I drifted through my days in a fog, with no sense of direction. The other kids avoided me, calling me a jinx. Only Mrs. Miller kept encouraging me. Sometimes she'd stop by my house to cook a meal. She was the only warmth in my life, the only reason I kept going. But fate can be cruel. She got a job transfer and had to leave town. The day before she left, she made me one last meal and told me I had to be strong. And just like that, I was back to drifting. Some nights, I'd walk to the cemetery and just sit by my parents' graves for hours. I found Ava in a grimy alley behind the town's only diner. She was digging through the dumpsters, looking for something to eat. A tiny little thing, her face smudged with dirt. Her clothes were rags, and she smelled awful. When she saw me, she got scared and scrambled back into the shadows behind a stack of crates. I just stood there staring for a long time. Then I walked over and held out the sandwich I was holding. She looked at me, terrified, but she must have been starving. She finally snatched it and started devouring it, choking after 2 bites. Panicked, I grabbed her hand and pulled her into my house, pouring her a glass of water before she could really get into trouble. She didn't say a word. She just glanced around the room and then left. 2 days later, it was pouring rain. She knocked on my gate. She was soaked to the bone, looking like a drowned puppy, completely miserable. I could read the plea in her eyes. Not a word was spoken between us. I stepped aside, she walked in, and I closed the door behind her. From that day on, I had a companion. She said her name was Ava, and that was all. I didn't ask for more. She would clean the house and the yard until they were spotless. When I'd get home, there would be 2 bowls of hot ramen noodles waiting on the table. She was desperate to prove her worth, just to have a place to stay in this little house. The noodles were always bland. She never knew how much seasoning to add, but I ate every last bite, every single time. She would always give me the bigger bowl, taking the smaller one for herself. She ate as little as possible and worked as hard as she could, all to prove she deserved to be there. She was only 9 years old. At night, we'd sleep in the only bed in the house, our bodies naturally huddling together for warmth, drawing comfort from each other. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Sometimes at night, I'd miss my parents so much I'd cry silently into my pillow. Ava would pat my back with her small hand, humming the only lullaby she knew in a tiny voice. Slowly, I got used to having her there. I got used to her making breakfast for me, washing the clothes, and sweeping the yard after I left for school. When I came home, dinner would always be on the table. On Sundays, I'd be inside doing homework while her small, thin figure was outside, tidying up the yard. Then one day, I came home and she was gone. I searched the whole town, but I couldn't find her anywhere. Life snapped back to the way it was before. I became quiet and withdrawn again, refusing to talk to anyone. Eating alone, going to school alone, cleaning the house alone. Life felt meaningless again. The only thing that gave me a flicker of connection was the tattered shirt she'd left behind. I started asking around, but nobody pays much attention to a missing kid who was never really there to begin with. It took 2 months before I heard a rumor from a neighbor. In a town a few miles away, a man had died, leaving behind a wife and daughter. The woman had lost her mind and did nothing but beat the child. This time, she'd nearly killed her. I stood frozen. A gut feeling told me it was Ava. I ran home like a madman. I pulled the money from under my bed, stuffed it in my backpack, and took off on my bike toward that town. When I got there, it only took a few questions to find the house. I walked right in. The place was a filthy, cluttered wreck. I had to watch my step just to get through the door. On a shabby mattress on the floor, Ava's frail body was lying still. Her clothes were nearly torn off, and she was covered by nothing but a ragged, thin blanket. When she saw me, a light flickered in her eyes. "Caleb, take me with you." I just stood there, staring. Her body was covered in massive bruises, her face swollen. Her voice was so weak. When I finally snapped out of it, I wrapped her in the blanket, threw her on my back, and ran. I ran so fast I forgot all about my bike. We spent 5 days in the hospital. Then I brought Ava home. Slowly, I pieced together her story. Her father was a gambling addict who racked up huge debts and then skipped town. The debt collectors harassed her mother until she snapped, and she started taking it all out on Ava. But she was still her mother, and after a while, Ava missed her and went back to see her. Her mother caught her, beat her viciously, and locked her in the house, not letting her leave. The beatings became a daily routine. After beating Ava, her mom would just disappear. If the neighbors hadn't heard this last beating, restrained her, and called the police, I never would have been able to get her out so easily. I snuck back to that town one more time, my heart pounding, and found her birth certificate. I grabbed it and pedaled back as fast as I could. "From now on, this is your home." I put the document in a drawer and said it to her just like that. "Caleb," she sobbed, tears streaming down her face as she whispered my name. Later, I applied to get her enrolled in school. My homeroom teacher went out of her way to help, and soon Ava was going to school with me. I was in 6th grade, and she started in 4th. But she studied harder than anyone I'd ever seen. By the time I was in 8th grade, she had skipped enough grades to be in my class. When our teacher learned about our situation, she made sure we sat together. Every day, we walked to school together and came home together. We ate the simplest meals, but our lives felt full. "Caleb, dinner's ready." The skinny little girl I'd found started to grow, slowly blossoming into a beautiful young woman. As time went on, people in town started hearing about us. A few times, couples came by, wanting to adopt Ava, but she refused every time. I asked her why she'd choose to live a hard life with me when she could have it so much easier. "Because if I leave, you'll be all alone again." She looked at me with those big, beautiful eyes, her expression completely serious. "You'll regret it." "No, I won't. I'm your Ava." The days passed one by one, and I started to worry. My money was running out. Even with us pinching every penny, it wouldn't last much longer. Looking at the honor roll certificate hanging on the wall, marking her as first in her class, I gritted my teeth and filed the paperwork to drop out of high school. When Ava found out, she cried her heart out, grabbing my shirt and trying to drag me back to the school. "Caleb, I don't want you to drop out. You go to school, I'll go to work. I can earn money to support you." I held her close and comforted her, and it was a long time before her sobs subsided. "Ava, let me earn money for you now. After you finish college, you can support me, okay?" I pointed out the difference in our grades. I was just an average student. I wasn't even sure I could get into college. Finally, Ava agreed. I went out and found a job on a construction site. It paid the best, and more importantly, it paid daily in cash. The first day left me so exhausted I could barely walk home. I couldn't even eat. I just collapsed onto the bed. Ava didn't say anything. She just wiped me down with a warm towel and watched over me for most of the night. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, hunger finally woke me up. With red-rimmed eyes, Ava made me a bowl of ramen. She got much better at making it. "Don't worry, I can take care of you," I said, smiling at her like nothing was wrong as I ate. "One day, I'll be the one taking care of you," she said, her eyes still red as she looked right at me. The next morning, I ate a big breakfast, full of energy. I gave her a bright smile and walked out the door with my head held high. She stood at the gate and watched me until I was out of sight, her thin figure looking so small and fragile. That year, I turned 17. Gradually, I got used to the heavy labor of a construction site, and Ava threw herself into her studies. I would usually sit with her while she studied, but I was always so tired I'd end up falling asleep with my head on the table. Sometimes I'd wake up hours later, and she'd still be there, reading and doing practice problems. At the end of her senior year, Ava graduated with a near-perfect GPA and got into a top-tier university 300 miles away. "Caleb, I don't want to be separated from you, but you have to go to college. How else are you going to support me later? I can go to a closer school. I don't have to go so far. Listen to me. You got into a great school. You have to go. You have to." It was the first time I'd ever raised my voice at her. Ava stood there, stunned, for a long moment before turning her back to me, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. I'm your Ava. I can't leave you all alone. I'll go with you. I regretted yelling at her instantly. After a moment, I said it again, this time with conviction. A week before she had to be at school, we went to my parents' graves. We knelt, said our goodbyes, and then, with our lives stuffed into 2 large bags, we set off on the long road toward her education and my next job. We hadn't heard anything about Ava's mother in years. She had just vanished. The bus ride felt endless. We didn't have assigned seats, so we found a spot in the back, dropped our bags, and sat on them, huddled together. We rented a tiny studio near the campus for $300 a month. It was barely enough to keep the rain out. After paying Ava's tuition, I had exactly $721 left. I found work at a nearby construction site during the day and got a job as an apprentice at a grill stand behind the university at night. The only way she could have a real future was if she could focus on her studies, so I was determined not to let her worry about a thing. With my first paycheck, I bought 2 phones. I gave the expensive new one to her and kept a $50 used one for myself. At first, Ava couldn't sleep at night being away from me. With the phones, she could text me, and seeing my replies helped her drift off. I budgeted my earnings carefully. After her school fees, most of what was left went to buying her clothes and necessities. All the other students at her school were dressed so well, I couldn't let Ava feel left out. The first time I walked her to her dorm, her roommates looked at me with a complicated expression. I knew that look all too well. I'd seen it my whole childhood. It was a look of veiled disdain. Ava was wearing a new outfit I'd bought her for over $100. I was in my old, worn-out clothes. A friend asked me to help her move in, I said, putting distance between us. I couldn't let her be embarrassed. Ava looked at me, her expression sad. After that, I never set foot on her campus again. I was focused on working and making money. Ava linked her meal card to my bank account. At first, she was only spending about $10 a day. You have to spend at least $30 a day on food. You can't study if your body gives out, I told her as we lay side by side on the small bed in our studio. She turned her back to me and didn't say a word. I didn't push it. We fell asleep like that, a few inches apart. When I woke up in the morning, she was curled up against my chest, sleeping soundly. Maybe I was just born to work. I picked up the grilling techniques with surprising ease. The owner was a decent old man, and once I got the hang of it, he raised my pay to $1,200 a month. I worked construction all day and at the grill stand until midnight. The money started adding up. Clothes, shoes, school supplies. I always bought Ava the best. I didn't visit her, but she couldn't help but sneak out to see me. Even though she couldn't help much, she'd stay by my side, wiping the sweat from my brow and chatting with me. The old man who owned the stand would always tease us, calling us a little couple. We'd just blush and say nothing. When it got too late, she'd come back to the studio with me, since the dorms were already locked. The bed was small. We'd start on opposite sides, but by morning we were always huddled together. She couldn't sleep soundly unless she was close to me. When she was deep asleep, her mouth would hang open, often soaking a corner of the pillow. One time, her roommate came out for a late-night snack and saw us. She came over, surprised, and said a few things to Ava. "He's my brother," I heard Ava say, her voice full of a pride that warmed my heart. I kept my face impassive and continued working. At the construction site, I started learning a trade from one of the older guys, working even harder. But before I could master the craft, the owner of the grill stand pulled me aside. "I'm leaving, going back home." The old man's hair had gotten whiter, but his eyes were bright. He clapped me on the shoulder. "I've been working my whole life. It's time to go back to my roots. This stand is yours now. Do good work." I drank with him late into the night. For the price of 1 month's wages, the grill stand and all its equipment were mine. To keep Ava from being embarrassed by me running a street cart, I gritted my teeth and rented a small storefront nearby. That way, we wouldn't have to deal with code enforcement chasing us off. Every night, I'd set up the grill outside, and most of the time, a quiet figure would be there with me. She'd hand out menus, take orders, and bring them to me. She'd help clear tables, and when it was slow, she'd sit behind me, just watching me work. To my surprise, the little grill business was incredibly profitable. In just 3 months, our lives changed dramatically. We moved out of the rundown studio and into the storefront where I partitioned off a small room for us to live in. Ava's clothes were now brand name, and she had a phone she wasn't embarrassed to use. I took her old one and traded my burner for a bucket. "Caleb, you don't have to buy me all this," Ava said, her voice tinged with worry as she held my hand in the mall, watching me spend thousands of dollars without a second thought. "Yes, I do. I told you I'd take care of you. What I buy, you wear. That's the deal." Ava pressed her lips together and didn't argue. On the drive back, I was buzzing with energy, describing the life we were going to have. Another 6 months, and I'll buy a small car. I'll drive you and your friends to a fancy restaurant for dinner. Well, okay. Ava's eyes lit up, and this time, she didn't object. When we got back, it was nearly evening. I expertly set up the grill, wiped down a clean stool for the 10th time, and had Ava sit on it. Keep it up, brother. Your little girlfriend's waiting for you to marry her. The guy from the shop next door called over, winking good-naturedly. Was all I could manage, not knowing how to respond. I just grinned like an idiot. Behind me, Ava's face was bright red, but she didn't correct him. Caleb, don't push yourself so hard. Ava gently wiped the sweat from my forehead. It's okay. I'm not tired. I gave her a happy grin, showing a mouthful of white teeth. A few male students who clearly knew Ava stopped by. They said hello and asked her to join them. Ava walked over and talked for a few minutes, but when they pulled out a chair for her, she shook her head and refused. After that, they became regulars, always finding an excuse to chat with her. Hey man, you better keep a close eye on your girl, the neighbor warned me. I just smiled and nodded, saying nothing. A few months later, right before Ava's birthday, I'd saved up enough money to buy a decent-looking used car. The owner of the used car lot was a regular customer. He always said my place was the best and most affordable around. When I went to buy the car, he gave me a huge discount. It was a model that cost over $20,000 new, and I got it for just a few grand. That day, I booked a private room at a big hotel, bought Ava a new laptop for over $800, and ordered cake. I bought myself a new suit, got a proper haircut, and then went to wait for her outside her dorm. Ava, when she appeared at the entrance with a few of her roommates, I could finally stand tall and greet her on campus. A weight I didn't know I was carrying lifted from my chest. I felt exhilarated. Caleb, she said, her voice as clear and bright as ever. She walked excitedly toward me and introduced me to her friends. They hadn't seen me in 2 years and didn't recognize me as the guy who dropped her off on the first day. Seeing that I was well-dressed and looked decent enough, they were all friendly. I gave Ava the laptop, then drove them all to the hotel. On the way, I heard them whispering in the back, admiring the laptop, asking what I did for a living, and telling Ava to give them my number. Ava just said I owned a small grill restaurant and refused to share my contact info. Your brother is so handsome. He doesn't look much older than us, and he already has his own car. I know this car. It's over $20,000. Wow, Ava, you're so low-key. I never would have guessed you came for money. The girls chattered in the back seat. Hearing Ava's happy laughter, my heart was filled with pure contentment. It was the first time ever that we had celebrated her birthday with other people. They sang enthusiastically as Ava, wearing a little birthday crown, clasped her hands and made a wish, her face flushed with happiness. Caleb, I'm so happy. That night, Ava didn't go back to her dorm. We squeezed into our little bed together. She'd gotten used to me being there and always found an excuse to come stay with me. As long as my Ava is happy. I held her, stroking her hair. Caleb, you finally came to the school to find me. You little dummy. I was afraid of embarrassing you. Caleb, I don't care about that. Edo. Ava pressed her face against my chest, nuzzling me gently, her voice growing softer and softer. Caleb, I'm your Ava. We held each other on that full-size bed, just like all those years ago. Even now that I had some money, I never thought about getting a bigger bed. There was no need. She'd always end up rolling into my arms in her sleep anyway. Caleb, from now on, you have to pay me a salary. Otherwise, I'm going to go work somewhere else. I don't know what got into her. A few days later, while I was grilling skewers, Ava put on a serious face and made this demand. Okay, you got it. I wiped the sweat from my brow, grinning from ear to ear. Hey, you two need to talk salaries now? Young lady, if he doesn't pay you enough, you can come work for me. The guy from next door chimed in with a laugh. Ava couldn't help but giggle. I'll give her whatever she asks for. Can you? I shot back, not to be outdone. Ava wiped my face again, suppressing a smile as she held an ice-cold drink to my lips. From then on, Ava would clock in and out, charging me by the hour. I had no idea what she needed the money for, but I happily paid her. There's some rich kid who's been chasing Ava lately. You better watch out, Caleb. One day, Ava had to stay in to finish a paper, so her 3 roommates came for dinner. One of them, a pretty girl named Jenna, was the one who told me. I just nodded, focusing on the grill. This girl, Jenna, would often come by when Ava wasn't around, finding excuses to talk to me. A few nights later, it was past 11 when Ava called, asking me to pick up Jenna from a bar. I drove over and found her completely wasted. Caleb, it's too late. I can't get back into the dorm, Jenna mumbled as I helped her into the car. I got her a room at a cheap motel and sat on a chair outside her door all night. Those kinds of places weren't very safe, and I'd feel terrible if something happened. I couldn't afford anything nicer, and Ava had told me Jenna's family didn't have much money either, She was always frugal. If I spent too much, she'd never pay me back. The next morning, when Jenna came out, she gave me a strange look. I ignored it. After I dropped her back at campus, I told her to stay out of places like that and drove off. Ava never mentioned the guy who was pursuing her, and I never told her about Jenna. We trusted each other completely. But after that day, Ava stopped staying at the dorm as much. She was always at the shop, squeezing into bed with me. When we'd go to the store, she would sneak off to buy new clothes and try them on for me when we got back. It's just, some of those outfits were a little more daring than I was used to. At night, I'd sleep with my back to her, completely missing the mischievous look in her eyes. When the university let out for winter break, my grill stand had no customers. I was already paying rent on the storefront, so to avoid wasting it, I invested some more money and converted it into a diner. Ava and Jenna both stayed for the break, working part-time for me. The rich kid who was after Ava came by a couple of times. At first, he treated me like a rival, but when he heard Ava call me Caleb, his whole attitude changed. He became friendly and polite, always ordering the most expensive things on the menu and insisting on buying me a drink. After he'd leave, Ava and I would count the money and share a smile. "Hey, Caleb, are you and Ava really not related by blood?" Jenna asked one day, leaning over Ava's shoulder. "Does it matter?" I looked at Ava, a smile playing on my lips. "I just think you two look so much alike. The first time I saw you, I was sure you were brother and sister." Jenna blinked, genuinely curious. "We're not related, but Caleb is my Caleb." Jenna looked confused, not understanding what Ava meant. I ruffled Ava's hair and went back to work. Ava looked at my hands with a pained expression. They were rough and scarred from all the years on construction sites. Open up, Caleb." Once the diner was empty, the three of us sat down for a late dinner. Ava picked up a piece of beef and held it to my lips, her expression playfully sweet. "Ow, hot, hot, hot." I took the bite and then pretended it had burned me, sucking in air dramatically. "Oh, I didn't mean to. Here, drink some water." Ava panicked and quickly offered me her glass. I turned my head and burst out laughing, which earned me a flurry of light punches from her. When we walked Jenna home, it had started to snow. Huge flakes drifted down, turning the whole city silver. "Oh," Jenna said, looking worried. She definitely couldn't ride her bike, and it wasn't safe to walk back alone. "We'll walk you," I said, taking Ava's hand. The three of us walked toward the campus, my hand and Ava's tucked together inside my coat pocket. Jenna watched us with a complicated look, her lips pressed together, saying nothing. When we got her to the campus gate, we just waved goodbye and turned to walk back. "You're terrible, Caleb," Ava said suddenly on the way home. "You can't tell what she's thinking?" After so many years, we understood each other without words. I knew what she meant and tossed the question back at her. "Of course I can, but you're mine." She playfully slipped behind me, putting both her hands into my coat pockets from the back. "Yep, and you're mine," I replied with a smile, walking carefully so she wouldn't trip. It was too awkward to walk like that, so I finally just crouched down, and she excitedly hopped onto my back. "You're my Caleb," she whispered excitedly in my ear. "And you're my Ava. You're my Caleb. And you're my Ava." We whispered it back and forth the entire way home. "I want to build a snowman." Okay, I had never once refused a request from Ava. So, the next day, when Jenna arrived, she stood outside for a long time, staring in amazement at the two fat snowmen in the yard. They wore our hats and our gloves. The smaller snowman, Ava's, had its head resting on the shoulder of the bigger one. "You two, your relationship is seriously confusing." She held in all morning, but finally brought it up at lunch. "Caleb is Caleb, and Ava is Ava. What's so confusing?" Ava retorted. "After all this time, are you related or not?" It seemed Jenna wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Ava and I exchanged a look of pity and went back to eating. "Caleb, try this." That's pretty good." Seeing that we were ignoring her, Jenna couldn't help but poke Ava's shoulder. "Come on, what is your relationship?" Ava glanced at me, then looked down at her plate. Jenna turned to me. I glanced at Ava, then focused on my food. "Arg, I can't take it anymore." Jenna screamed in frustration. Across the table, Ava and I broke into laughter. "Just tell me, what's the big secret?" Seeing that Jenna wasn't going to give up, I looked at Ava. She thought for a moment, then shook her head gently. I gave Jenna a sympathetic look and shook my head too. Thump! Jenna slumped onto the table, completely defeated. Christmas was approaching. I made an excuse to go out by myself for a bit. Ava narrowed her eyes but nodded in agreement. I went to the mall and bought her a makeup set that cost over $100. Then I went to a flower shop and bought a bouquet of roses, placing them carefully on the backseat of my car. That evening, after the last customer left, I locked the front door. Jenna was setting the table for our dinner. I retrieved the roses from behind the counter and asked Ava, who had her back to me, to turn around. Her jaw dropped, her face a picture of pure shock and delight. Is that for? Jenna looked up and saw me holding the pink roses. Her expression shifted from surprise to excitement, and then quickly fell flat. Because I handed the flowers to Ava. You're a young woman, but you've never owned any makeup. My Ava can't be outshone by anyone. I brought out the cosmetic set as well. Ava held the flowers in one arm and the makeup in the other, her eyes sparkling. I'm so happy. She put the gifts on the counter, then turned and rummaged through a drawer, pulling out a small box and a tube of hand cream. Caleb's hands got like this for me. I hope you'll take better care of them from now on, Ava mumbled as she opened the little box. She turned, pulled my head down, and a cool little object clipped on my earlobe. I looked in the mirror. It was a men's clip-on earring. What does this taste? Even I, who always doted on her, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because with me, Caleb is always the adult. But I want you to be a little reckless sometimes, too. I don't want you to work so hard just for me. Her eyes were filled with pure, unadulterated concern. Ava wrapped her arms around my waist, looked up at me, and stared right into my eyes. Her words struck the deepest part of my soul. My eyes started to burn, and I had to force them wide open to keep the tears from falling. Caleb, Ava whispered softly. Her hands moved up to circle my neck, and her soft lips met mine. Jenna stood frozen in place, her eyes wide as saucers. When she finally realized she shouldn't be there, she turned around. You asked for salary just to buy me a present? Of course. This is my very first paycheck. I spent all of it on a gift for you. You're my Caleb now. I always have been. Then what about Ava? She's Caleb's, of course. Listening to us talk in what must have sounded like riddles, Jenna let out a weary sigh and slumped over the table, questioning her own existence. After we'd had our moment, Ava held the bouquet of pink roses, absolutely smitten. Let's eat first. After dinner, we can find a vase and put them in some water, I called to her, then started getting the food ready. You might as well just kill me now and get it over with. It'll really set the mood for you too. Jenna finally managed to choke out from her spot at the table. Ava and I had to try very hard not to laugh. On New Year's Eve, Ava and I stood outside, hand in hand, watching the fireworks light up the sky. The night was brilliant, dazzling. As the colors exploded above us, they illuminated the festive wreath I'd hung on the door that morning. I looked down at Ava's pure, beautiful face and her lips, the kind of red that looked addictive. Ava, I whispered. As she turned her head, I leaned down and captured her mouth with mine. MMPH. Her words were lost in my loving kiss, and after a moment, she began to awkwardly kiss me back. Hey, take it inside, you too. There are other people here. Jenna grumbled from the sidelines, but it didn't slow us down one bit. Ava stood on her toes, wrapped her arms around my neck, and took the lead. That night, Jenna didn't go back to the dorm. The three of us sat around the table playing poker until the early hours of the morning. In the end, Jenna slept on a folding cot, while Ava and I snuggled together in our little bed in the back room. After the holidays, the neighboring shops started to open up again, and people bustled about, exchanging greetings and stories about their time away. The seasons flew by. By the time Ava was a senior in college, I told her she should get an internship, but she refused to leave the diner. We talked it over one night and ended up renting the vacant storefront next door, knocking down the wall to create one large space. Being so close to the university, my diner was known for its good value, and I often gave discounts to students who were struggling, so we had a lot of repeat customers. Over the years, we'd built a small reputation, and our income grew steadily. I had raised Ava to be a refined young woman. She carried herself with a confidence that now radiated from within. Her friends and classmates all knew about me and would often come by to eat and support the business. Some of them would pull me aside and warn me not to get too invested, saying that college graduates like Ava often change their minds once they're out in the real world. I just smile and ignore them. On the day of her graduation, I showed up in a well-fitting suit, looking every bit the successful entrepreneur, holding a bouquet of flowers to celebrate with her. We kissed right there in front of everyone, a kiss that felt like it encompassed our entire youth. Ava didn't go to the graduation party with her classmates. Why aren't you going? I asked, watching her hunched over the diner's account books. Most of those people are boring. I just feel awkward. I'd rather be here with you. Ava looked up, her eyes crinkling into a smile. But your friends are going, right? You don't want to celebrate with them? I found that a little strange. Ava really liked her friends. I already told them. A couple of days after their party, I'm inviting them all here. My treat. Wow, so generous. Ava. My praise earned a proud little snort from her, but then I changed the subject. But, are you sure you have enough money to treat that many people? Ava's face fell. She counted the contents of her little piggy bank and then looked at me with puppy dog eyes. Huh, you little dummy. You think I'd let you pay for your friends to eat here? I stroked her head. She wrinkled her nose and made a funny face at me. That night, we were squeezed into our little bed as usual. It was hot, so the air conditioner was running. Suddenly, Ava sat up and started taking off her clothes. My eyes were closed. I had no idea what she was doing. All I felt was a soft, smooth body pressing against mine. Ava, you... I snapped my eyes open, stunned by the sight before me. A completely naked Ava silenced me with a kiss, giving me no chance to refuse. I don't have the money to treat my friends to dinner, so I'll just have to repay you with my body. I heard her whisper between ragged breaths, her voice a familiar, seductive purr. Caleb, I'm your Ava now. You were before, you are now, and you will be for the rest of our lives. Good. After that night, we lay tangled together, whispering sweet nothings that only we could understand. Ava's circle of close friends wasn't large, just a dozen or so girls. In the midst of their excited cheering, Ava and I told them the story of how we met and grew up together, earning a chorus of heartfelt blessings. Going to college doesn't guarantee success, but not going makes it a lot harder. One of the girls laughed, looking at me in my diner, and said that maybe school wasn't all that important, that she might not even do as well as I had. I just smiled and shook my head, sincerely wishing them all bright and successful futures. When they were full and ready to leave, Ava and I stood at the door, saying our goodbyes and offering blessings to each of them. Hey, don't say goodbye to me. I'm thinking of staying here for a while. I haven't decided where I'm going yet, Jenna said, waving her hand when it was her turn. We both smiled, a little happy to hear it. After all this time, we had come to accept her as a true friend. After that, Ava and I continued to run the diner. With her computer science degree, she spent her days typing away at a computer. When I asked her about it, she said she found a job doing remote software maintenance. As long as she was available when they needed her, the pay wasn't bad. When the students returned for the fall semester, I hired 2 college girls as waitresses to free up Ava's time. Our life was peaceful. Jenna really did stay, finding a job in town. She worked 9 to 5 for $60,000 a year, which was pretty good. Congratulations, Ms. Jenna. At this rate, you'll be making 6 figures by the end of your probationary period, I teased. She shot me, and Ava, a resentful look. You two rake in 40 or 50 grand a month from this place. Why are you making fun of a little employee like me? No teasing intended. We're genuinely happy for you. Jenna would come by at least once a week. If it wasn't busy, she'd grab a bite to eat. If it was crowded, she'd jump in and act as a temporary waitress. This went on for a year. Ava and I stayed the same, but Jenna grew quieter, more reserved. She said the office politics were exhausting, that she felt drained every day. Our diner was the only place she could really relax. So Ava asked her if she wanted to go into business with us, to start a breakfast service at the diner. The two of them huddled together for a long time, and then, just like that, they had a plan. Jenna and Ava learned how to make specialty breakfast items. They opened for 2.5 hours every morning, and surprisingly, it did very well. It didn't interfere with Jenna's office job, either. She'd come in at 6 every morning and work with Ava, then leave for her own job at 8:10. Time flew by, and another year was drawing to a close. When Jenna was leaving to go home for the holidays, she made a point of saying a proper goodbye. Ava and I told her we were leaving, too. We asked if she wanted to take over the diner. We're going back home. We're going to build a house and get married, and we're not coming back. Why? Isn't it great here? Because that's our home. When Jenna came back after the new year, there was a young man with her. This is my brother. He wants to take over your diner. Jenna's brother helped out at the diner for a month. I taught him everything I knew about running the business, and he agreed to pay for the transfer in installments. Ava and I packed our things. With enough savings in the bank to build our house, we set off on the road back home. I had my parents' old house torn down and rebuilt. I designed a 2-story home, keeping the yard big enough to park my car. The day we moved in, it was just me and Ava in the yard, and I asked her to marry me. Ava, will you marry me? Yes. 2 simple words. I slid the ring onto her finger, and we held each other gently. We had fulfilled our promise. After we moved back, Ava continued her remote IT work, and I went to work for her. With the money left over from building the house, we opened a flower shop in town. Ava volunteered to be the manager, and I was her employee. Ava's salary wasn't bad at all. She brought in $8,000 a month after taxes. Combined with the flower shop's variable income, we were very happy. Ava would buy me gifts, and whenever I'd refuse, she'd wrinkle her nose and tell me fiercely, You have to. You have to spend my money. I told you I'd be the one to support you. Our peaceful life continued. We started planning our wedding while running the flower shop. We booked a mid-sized hotel in the city and had a wonderful ceremony. Seeing Ava in her white wedding dress, my heart felt like it would burst with happiness. After the wedding, we went home. That night, we held each other tightly in bed. Caleb, it's my turn to support you now. Heh, okay. After we got married, Ava hired a girl to help at the shop and told me I didn't have to come in anymore. She gave me strict orders. I could stay home, go fishing, or play video games, but I was not allowed to work. And so, I retired. Our expenses were low, we had no major debts, and Ava's salary was more than enough to support us, not to mention the income from the flower shop. I tried fishing for a while, but I couldn't stand being out in the sun all day, so I switched to video games. But it was boring being home alone all day, so I started going to the flower shop with Ava every day. I'd sit next to her and play games on my phone. During her lunch and dinner breaks, she'd spend an hour doing her remote maintenance work, and I'd rest my head on the table and watch her. It felt just like all those years ago when she would be studying and I'd be at the table with her, keeping her company. Caleb, whose are you? I'm Ava's. And whose is Ava? She's Caleb's. Time keeps moving forward, and so does our story. We'll occasionally take a trip, pack a tent, and go camping and see the beautiful sights. But most of the time, we're happiest right here in our little house, curled up together, whispering to each other. Even after so many years have passed, when we're no longer young, we still love being this close, saying the same words over and over. Because those words are a testament to the life we've walked through together, hand in hand. In the darkness, we supported each other and gave each other courage. Caleb, don't leave me. I will never forget that small, thin figure, crying and clinging to me, begging me not to abandon her. I kiss her cheek and pull her in my arms. I'm your Caleb. We're going to grow old together. We will never, ever be apart.